You God का ध्यान कीजिए स्वामी तो भक्तविंद की जय और glory to God all glory to God thank you very much जय राधा माधव पुण्य बिहारी
Hare Krishna. I see no one here, just one person. Shalika, you there? Okay, Hare Krishna. Okay, we can start now. But please put your videos on and Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurin Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namo Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stavitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamai Hang Dadati Sapatantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Dam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitanscha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivashari Shivaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, in continuation of our study of Bhakti Vaibhava, Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter 16. Today we start with a chapter, and we ended with chapter 15 last time. And the Kumaras were offering their prayers to their Lord after they had this transformation they experienced by smelling the lotus feet of the Lord mixed with the flavor of tulsi and sandalwood that was offered to the Lord. They had a transformation in consciousness. And then they prayed to the Lord, how they are only manifested to the pious, to the devotees. And in the end, they offered themselves for any kind of punishment, if need be, to the Supreme Lord, as they realized in their mood of repentance that they had committed a mistake by misunderstanding or not misunderstanding the position of these two doorkeepers. So therefore, they were feeling very bad. They were feeling uneasy, and therefore they offered. He said that we may be born in any hellish condition, but then at the same time, we may be engaged in your service and we may speak words about you and we can hear about you. We can conclude one thing from there. That the worst thing that can happen to a devotee is ... fill in the blank. What is the worst thing can happen to a devotee?
Hare Krishna. Not to engage in Krishna service and then hearing and chanting about him. Those three things.
Yes. Anything else? What is the worst thing that can happen to any of us in devotional service? If you are devotees, I mean.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
If we forget Krishna totally.
Yes. Remember the
that is
prayers?
worst thing.
Remember the prayers of these two doorkeepers said, wherever we want you send us, please do not give us the curse that we forget the Supreme Lord.
Yes.
So even when you are negatively impacted, you know, and you may come to a situation where we may not be practicing devotional service, favorably engaged in service of the Lord, somehow we can remember the Lord. Somehow we can remember the Lord. That's the most important thing. So the worst thing that can happen is you forget the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. We should never, we should always pray that we never have the situation where we actually forgot the Supreme Lord. Okay? So then that's how it ends. And the text 50 said, we offer our respects to your eternal form that cannot be seen by the unfortunate, but is manifested to us and thus satisfied our mind and vision. So these four Kumaras, they are standing right in front of Lord Vishnu. And they said, you know, your beautiful form, it's impossible for those who don't have the auspicious and the good fortune, the auspiciousness and the good fortune. They cannot see that, but you are manifested in front of us, and we are so satisfied and we are so fortunate to have your vision. Okay, so that's what we discussed. Now, today, we're going to start the chapter 16. All right, and we will start with the verse 1. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narotamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet. Nastapriyeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Seva. Bhagavati Utama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Vandaraja Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Brahmo Vacha Iti Tad Grinatam Desham Vaninam Yoga Dharminam Pratinandya Jagadidam Vaikunta Nilayo Vibhu. Lord Brahma said, after thus congratulating the sages for their nice words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose abode is in the kingdom of God, spoke as follows. So the Lord now, after congratulating the sages for their nice words, now the Lord speaks. So that verse 1 is a verse correlating one episode to another episode. Yeah? So it's called Sangati verses, verses that correlate. So Lord Brahma has been describing, now he is describing how the Lord is going to respond to them. And therefore, you know, puts, okay, now the Lord himself is speaking, right? And this narration is going on. So that verse, when you see Brahmo Vacha, this is a Sangati verse. So it's a correlating it, okay, together. Okay, so let's read this. Text 2. Bhagavan Vacha etato parshado mahayam jatoji vijaya evacha kadarthi krityamam yodva bhavu akartam atikramam. These attendants of mine, Jaya and Vijay by name. So far, the name of Jaya and Vijay was not taken. So the doorkeepers, we've been using the word doorkeepers, doorkeepers, doorkeepers. Because it is actually Lord Vaikuntanath, Lord Vishnu, is actually now introducing them in an indirect way. He said, these attendants of mine, Jai Vijay by name. So you see in the verse, it says, Jayo Vijayo Evacha, Parshadam Mahayam, And he uses the word Jai Vijay. And these attendants of mine, Jai and Vijay by name, have committed a great offense against you because of ignoring you. So they have committed a great offense against you because of ignoring you. So purport, to commit an offense at the feet of the devotee of the Lord is a great wrong. Even when a living entity is promoted to Vaikuntha, there is still the chance that he may commit offenses. But the difference is that when one is in Vaikuntha planet, even if by chance one commits an offense, he is protected by the Lord. This is a remarkable fact in the dealings of the Lord and their servitor, as seen in the present incident concerning Jai and Vijay. The word atikramam here, used herein, indicates that in offending a devotee, one neglects the Supreme Lord himself. By mistake, the doorman held the sages from entering Vaikuntha Lord, but because they were engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, the annihilation was not expected by advanced devotees. Because they were engaged in service, even though there may be an offense, they're not going to be completely disallowed from their service. So we don't expect that they're going to just suddenly be completely wrecked. The Lord's presence on the spot was very pleasing to the hearts of the devotee. The Lord understood that the trouble was due to his lotus feet not being seen by the sages. And therefore he wanted to please them by personally going there. Do you understand that? You reading with me or you following? Yeah.
No, we did not understand. I did not understand.
The Lord understood the trouble was due to his lotus feet not being seen by the sages. That means that the sages had not actually had darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, they didn't have that transformation of consciousness which is described previously in text 43 of the last chapter.
Okay.
So when they had attained that change in consciousness, tasya arvindanaya padaravinda kinjalka mishra tulasi makaranda vayu antargatasa vivarena chakaratesham shakshubham aksharam chusham abhijita tanvo. So that brought a consciousness, because when they seen the lotus feet, actually even before seeing the lotus feet, there was a change in consciousness by the quality of the Lord. Please mute, my friends. Please mute, everyone. Please mute. Hare Krishna. Even before the Lord came, of course, it's a few seconds. I don't know, a few moments. Best way to say a few moments. When the Lord was coming, the breeze that carried the aroma of the Lord lotus feet mixed with tulsi and sandalwood had caused a transformation in the consciousness, and they became immediately very careful and very repentant. So the Lord understood that the trouble that had come, their having got upset and having cursed Jai and Vijay, was because they had not seen the Supreme Lord yet. So there is a complete transformation because they were impersonalist. They were situated in Brahman. They were not Mayavadis, they were impersonalists, means that they were, and they understood the spiritual nature of the absolute truth, but they did not have darshan of the personal feature of the absolute truth. So the Lord, he understood the trouble was due to his lotus feet having not been seen by the sages, and therefore he wanted to please them by coming personally. So he wanted to offer his darshan, which would actually complete the transformation of the Jnani Bhakta that they were, the Shanta or Jnani Bhakta that they were, into actually full-fledged Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, because that's what they've been hearing about, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's why they were actually at the door of Vaikuntha trying to meet with the Lord, trying to see him, because the descriptions have enamored the mind. So the Lord is so merciful that even if there is some impediment for the devotee, he himself manages matters in such a way that the devotee is not bereft of having audience of his lotus feet. So this is a good example here, right? So if something is missing in the devotee, if something is a little bit still a gray area or a black spot in the character of the devotee, then by his mercy, the Lord takes care of that. Are you following? So one of you have to quote me the verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, where the Lord says, any dark spots, any dark gray corner, I take care of it. No?
Krishna.
Yes?
Yeah. Please, if a verse that talks about doubt in chapter 10, you're talking about?
No, it's a mercy of the Lord, just like Lord Vishnu gives a mercy. It's a tech.
Okay, teksham Ivanu Kampatam Ahama Gena Gantama.
Yes. Yes. So if there is any darkness of ignorance left in the heart, for not having understood the personal feature of the Lord, Lord Vishnu come personally, said, here I am. And just by taking darshan of his lotus feet and being in the presence of the Lord, all ignorance, all inabilities, all shadows, all dark, gray, black areas are all dissolved. And that's the mercy of the Lord, right? So it is said the Lord is so merciful that even if some impediment for the devotees, he himself manages matters in such a way that the devotee is not bereft of having audience at his lotus feet. There's a very good example in the life of Haridas Thakur. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was residing at Jagannath Puri, Haridas Thakur, who happened to be a Mohammedan by birth, was with him. In Hindu temples, especially in those days, no one but a Hindu was allowed to enter. Although Haridas Thakur was the greatest of all Hindus in his behavior, he considered himself Mohammedan and did not enter the temple. That thing started, that culture of Muslims not being allowed in the temple became an edict in the Hindu culture, in the Sanatana Dharma culture. It was not so much to do with discrimination as it was to do with the violence that was perpetrated by Mughal invaders on Indian temples. They actually were desecrating temples. Even Lord Jagannath temple had been attacked about 4 to 5 times and they wanted to destroy the deity. So many temples in the north of India were destroyed. Someone say in the region of 20 to 30,000 temples were destroyed and deities were smashed. And in the south, because the Mughal invaders did not go to the south so much, in the south there's still so many temples. Otherwise, India was a land of Dharma. There was a land of that. So in the northern part of India, you don't see so many temples. And like similarly in Ayodhya nowadays, there was a temple at the birthplace of Lord Ram, but that was supplanted by a mosque. If you go to Mathura and you see the Janmashthan temple, the temple where the Lord, the Krishna has taken birth, that temple is there, but the access to the temple is a narrow passage like that, right? Because the most part of the land of the temple has been supplanted by a mosque, right? So this was the story, like even the Gyanvapi mosque is in Varanasi. In Varanasi, there's no place for a mosque. Varanasi is a city of Lord Shiva. Temples all over the place, right? But one of the main temple, Kashi Vishwanath Mandir, which is just like the temple in Ayodhya, just like the temple in Mathura, they've been covered over by having the deity destroyed and having a temple built on that place. Even the Taj Mahal was the same. Taj Mahal inside is all Indian architecture. It's all the architecture of temples with lotus, cranes, birds, and whatever, right? But it belonged to a Hindu king. And then this Mughal emperor, they took that temple and converted it into a mausoleum. It is not actually a mausoleum. It was a Shiva temple. So that's the reason that actually after a while in India, people of foreign origin, they were not allowed to go in the temples because they were desecrating the temples. And therefore that culture remained. That culture remained for a while. So that's actually the main reason, but the historians will tell you otherwise. It's not otherwise. Okay, so Lord Chaitanya could understand his humility, and since he did not go to see the temple, Lord Chaitanya himself, who is non-different from Jagannath, used to come and sit with Haridas Thakur daily. So he could not go and see the Supreme Lord. So to give him mercy, Lord Chaitanya would come and be with him. And just like here, Lord Vishnu came and gave darshan to the 4 Kumaras. Okay. And now let us see the last part. Here in Srimad Bhagavatam, we also find the same behavior of the Lord. The devotees were prevented from seeing the Lord, lotus feet, but the Lord himself came to see them on the same lotus feet for which they aspired. And the Lord walked. So we can see, Lord, he didn't come flying on the Garuda, he walked there so that they could see his lotus feet. Because that was the main aim. He wanted for them to have the breeze, the Makaranda Vayu, the breeze that coming from the beautiful perfume of his lotus feet. So it is also significant that he was, so, last time Rasavan asked that question, why didn't you come in Garuda? So these rhetorical questions, they're not Shastric questions, they're rhetorical questions. And as you read on, Krishna always gives the answer somehow. Right? So the goddess of fortune, so it's also significant that he was accompanied by the goddess of fortune. The goddess of fortune is not to be seen by ordinary person, but the Lord was so kind that the devotees did not aspire for an honor. He appeared before them with the goddess of fortune. So accompanied by several devotees, Lakshmi Devi and Garuda, the Lord arrived there. Okay? There's that beautiful picture of Lord Vishnu seeing the, there's a beautiful picture of Lord Vishnu seeing the Hare Krishna Mudam Klasla. Okay. So that's a beautiful picture there. If you can see it, it's very nice. Lord Vishnu meeting the 4 boys. Text free. Yaste tayorito dando bhavabdir mamunubrati sevanumatosma bhir munayo devahelana. Oh great sages, I approve of the punishment. Immediately the Lord says, I approve of the punishment that you are devoted to me have meted out to them. Immediately says, I approve of the punishment that you who are devoted to me have meted out to them. So their devotion is very new. They just met the Lord. They had desire to see him. And Jai Vijay have been in the service of the Lord for a long period of time. So the Lord is pacifying the situation, making sure that it doesn't escalate. And of course, things have changed already by his lotus feet being seen by the 4 sages. Text 4. Tava prashadayami adya brahmadevam param hime tadditiyat makritam manye yatsva pumbir shatkrita. To me, the Brahmana is the highest and most beloved personality. The disrespect shown by my attendants has actually been displayed by me because the domain of my servitors. So he said, the Brahmanas is the highest and most beloved personality. So he's talking about the Brahmanas, which means the 4 boys. So this is an incredible statement by Lord Vishnu. And he said that this respect that my attendants have actually displayed It's actually me the cause, because the domain are my servitors. So Lord Vishnu is not like the materialist leaders. He said the buck stops with him. He is taking responsibility for the actions of the doorkeepers, because they are my servitors. So therefore, this disrespect is a display of disrespect that actually I should consider is a disrespect. I am doing this disrespect. Why? Because they're my servitors. So he takes responsibility. It's quite amazing. Generally in the material world, people don't take responsibility for others. People generally blame others. But Lord Vishnu, he is saying, no, this display of disrespect, I'm taking responsibility for it. So can someone read the purport?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. The Lord is always in favor of the Brahmanas and the cows, and therefore it is said, Go Brahmana Isdaya Cha. Lord Krishna and or Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is also the worshipable deity of the Brahmanas. In the Vedic literature, in the Rig mantra, hymns of the Rig Veda, it is stated that those who are actually Brahmanas always look to the lotus feet of Vishnu. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pasyanti Suraya. Those who are qualified Brahmanas worship only the Vishnu form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which means Krishna, Rama, and all Vishnu expansions. A so-called Brahmana who is born in the family of Brahmanas but performs activities aimed against the Vaishnavas cannot be accepted as a Brahmana, because Brahmanas means Vaishnava, and Vaishnava means Brahmana. One who has become a devotee of the Lord is also a Brahmana. The formula is Brahman Chajana Titi Brahmana. A Brahmana is one who has understood Brahman, and a Vaishnava is one who has understood the personality of Godhead.
So
Brahma,
carry on.
I should carry on. Brahman realization is the beginning of the realization of the personality of Godhead. One who understands the personality of Godhead also knows the impersonal feature of the Supreme, which is Brahman. Therefore, one who becomes a Vaishnava is already a Brahmana. It should be noted that the glories of the Brahmana described in this
Okay, so first the Lord approved, Deva Helanat, in text 3. He approves of the punishment, which means that more or less I would have given the same punishment. Why? Because they are actually not performing well in that sense. And he's saying to them that you should not be afraid of having committed an offense, because my two servants here, they committed offense to you because they have ignored the conduct desired by me. There was a dissonance between the Lord's desire to serve and the Lord's desire and the desire to serve by these two Jai Vijay. There was a dissonance. They were not quite aligned. So the Lord, when he said that I approve of the punishment, which means that I would have done the same of you, I would have given them the same punishment, right? That's what actually the Lord is meaning here, all right? So I'm just recapitulating it. So when the Lord says in the text 4, right, which we are reading now, to me the Brahmana is the highest and the most beloved personality, which we have read. So in a sense, the Lord is saying, today I seek, and also he's saying in the verse, I seek forgiveness. Now, watch this. the Lord is actually asking forgiveness to the 4 boys. This is an incredible character of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has the humility. He has this incredible ability to ask forgiveness, even though he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to the Brahmanas. So he says, today I must ask for forgiveness. I worship the Brahmanas above all else by me. And because of my servants disrespected you, he is saying in essence that he's saying in essence that I consider that I have committed that offense. And how is it your offense? If Jai Vijay were not my servitors, and if I had not been so affectionate to them, there would be no offense on my part. So he is taking on the responsibility. The Lord is taking on the responsibility of the offenses. Why? Because he's valuing the Brahmanas. And the Lord is always in favor of the Brahmanas and the cows. Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. Okay. So, but what is a Brahmana? Not a Brahmana by caste. The caste system is not quite the Varnashram system. A Brahmana is a Brahmana by qualification. Brahma Janatiti Brahmana. A Brahmana is one who has understood Brahman. And a Vaishnava is one who has understood the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, he has Brahman realization. But Brahman realization is a beginning of the realization of Personality of Godhead. So there are 3 types of realization, 3 levels of realization of the absolute truth. Who can say what they are? And what is the reference of the verse? Welcome, Kamalaksha Prabhu. Yes, Sarika, go on, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, there is something in the previous verse that is just bothering my mind. I need a clarification. If we go back a little bit to text number 2, the Lord is saying that the attendants of mine, Jaya and Vijaya by name, have committed a great offense against you because of ignoring me. The story of Jaya Vijaya, the understanding is that these 2 offended the 4 Kumaras, but the Lord is saying this is as a result of ignoring him. So meaning that their fault that wasn't actually by offending the 4 Kumaras, but ignoring the Lord. That's what this verse is saying. But so I just need some clarity of that.
Ignoring the Lord means that if you're a first-class servant of your spiritual master, you must know his mood. You must know what he likes, what he doesn't like. You must, especially when it comes to something so important as his love for Brahmanas and cows. So how come Jai and Vijay did not have this understanding that the Lord really likes Brahmanas, and he saw 4 beautiful Brahmana boys, innocent, walking carefree, that the Lord would be happy to see them? How come he didn't understand? How come Jai and Vijay did not understand that? So in a way, there was a dissonance. They were not on the same wavelength. You know, the Lord and the Jai and Vijay, they were not on the same wavelength. And that's why the reason for cursing, he said, why are you stopping us? There's not supposed to be duality. Why are you saying good and bad here? There's no good and bad. You remember the boys, they were rebuking these 2 doorkeepers. And now the Lord then comes and confirms. He said, they should not have insulted you like this. They shouldn't have stopped you. That means they don't understand me. They're not, it's not that they don't understand you. The proper word to use is they were not completely in accord with the Lord's desire. And a servant has to be in accord with the Lord's desire, especially in Vaikuntha. That's what makes us go to Vaikuntha planet, is because we become perfect servants of the Lord. We have no fault left, and therefore the Lord takes us into his service in the spiritual world. Now these two are acting discordantly by stopping 4 innocent, young, beautiful Brahmana boys wanted to see the Lord. So the Lord says, hey, they were here on earth. I would have given the same punishment. So I agree with your punishment. Do you understand now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Right? And furthermore, just to go deeper into the point, the Lord in the purport, previous purport, Prabhupada explains that this has happened, this incident. In a way, he's also laying a blame on the Brahmanas. Prabhupada explained in the purport that this problem happened because they had not seen my lotus feet. Because had they seen my lotus feet, they would have no dark corners or shady gray areas left in their heart. So in a way, he is making a very balanced proposition. The Lord is making a very balanced proposition. But the quality of character of the personality of Godhead is being displayed here when he asks forgiveness to the Brahmanas, and that's quite an incredible thing. He asks forgiveness to them, you know. So he has a very high quality of character. So this is one important thing. So then my next question was, there's a difference between a Brahmana and a Vaishnava. Vaishnava, a Brahmana, means basically Brahma Janatiti Brahmana. He has Brahman reality, he understands spiritual nature. Okay. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is more than just Brahman. And a Vaishnava, he realizes the personal aspect of the Supreme Lord. Not just the impersonal aspect, but the personal aspect of the Supreme Lord. And the personal aspect of the Supreme Lord is in one way higher than the Brahman realization, is understanding the Lord being localized in everything. So Lord being also all-pervading, but not in a Brahman way, but in a localized way. And that is Paramatma. But then higher than that is a Vaishnava realization of the Lord having a personal form and being a person. So my question was, which verse in Srimad Bhagavatam explained the realization of the absolute truth in these 3 levels?
Vedanta.
Yes. 1 to 11. Vadanti tat tattva vidas, tattam adgyanam advayam, brahmeti, paramatmeti, pri, bhagavaniti, sabdate. So those who are seers of the truth have concluded that the supreme absolute truth can be understood in 3 phases as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Now, Jiva Goswami has written, this is the perfect understanding of the supreme absolute truth, 1 to 11. It is not just Brahman, impersonal energy, but he is also present everywhere as Paramatma. He is the soul of every created entity that maintains the functionality of every created being, and even every created piece of atom. He maintains the functionality of it by entering in them. So he is impersonal, big Brahmajyoti, but he's also minutely present in everything. But that's not being a person. That's being a functionary, so to speak, a functional, like a person who is allowing the functioning of each created particle of matter to function in conjunction with a soul. That's Paramatma. So Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, right? So then we can understand that Brahman, he is the supervisor of material energy, because he enters into every created unit of material energy, into a form, into a shape, into a function, functioning unit, whatever it is. It is a shark, it is an insect, it is a microbe, it is a human being, it is a demigod, or it is a planet, it is a universe, it is a stone, it is an atom. Everything constitutes together to form the function of the material universe. And everything that is created has a function, and that function is maintained by the supervisory capacity of the Paramatma, the soul that enters into everything. Right? Paramatma. So he is the plenary expansion of Sankarshan, right? And then he enters into everything and he maintains everything. Everything is maintained. This is maintained in its structure, otherwise it will collapse. This is maintained in its structure, otherwise it will collapse. And I and you and everyone's maintained into our structure, and it functions according to what we are built for by Paramatma. So he's a supervisor of material creation. Minutely, locally, universally, and globally. Everywhere. He's Paramatma. But that still doesn't make him complete. So here he is a creator, you can ask. You can say he's a creator, he's a maintainer. Okay? You can say he's a creator, he's a maintainer. But that's all God is, creator and maintainer? No, he's more than that. So that more than that is Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Sabdyate. He is Bhagavan. He has all the bhaga, he has all the opulence that there is in the whole universe, or the spiritual and material worlds. And he has all the bhagas, he has all the opulences. That's why it's called Bhagavan. So he is the richest, he is the most knowledgeable, he is the most renounced, he is the most beautiful, he is the strongest, and he has the most reputation. So that defines the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to Parasara Muni. And that is the ultimate form of the Supreme Absolute Truth as Bhagavan. So the Supreme Absolute Truth can be realized in 3 stages. And seers of the truths have explained this. As Brahman, impersonal energy, Paramatma as a localized Lord, allowing the functioning of everything, and as a Supreme Lord, Bhagavan. Is that more or less clear, Prabhu?
Yes.
Any question?
Yes.
So the Supreme Lord, he has one ultimate form, but then he has expansions of these forms into other forms. So he has unlimited forms. But the one and the most important, one of the first supreme absolute form of the Lord is Krishna as Govinda. So a Vaishnava, he understands this personality of Godhead. And that's why I'm making this point, the Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, and then Bhagavan realization. Now, just incidentally, this is a subject matter that Jiva Goswami takes on and tries to explain the Supreme Absolute Truth. In Paramatma Sandarbha, he explains Paramatma in detail, absolute detail. Okay? And then he explains in absolute detail Paramatma Sandarbha. And then he explains God, his qualities, abode and associates in the Bhagavad Sandarbha. You see? And it is based on this verse 1 to 11. It is based on this verse 1 to 11. Jiva Goswami takes that. Of course, he correlates with other verses in Srimad Bhagavatam, and then he explains that. And that is the highest explanation of the Supreme Absolute Truth. This is done by Jiva Goswami. Okay? So so then Prabhupada makes a distinction in this verse about Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Okay? Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. he makes it clear that a Brahmana is not just someone who is born a Brahmana, but someone is a Brahmana because he understands Brahman. And a person who is a Vaishnava, he understands more than just Brahman. He understands the supreme absolute truth. Any questions or comments? Okay, text 5. Yannamani chagrenati loko britye kritagashi so sadhu vadastat kritam hanti tattam ivamachaya. So this one here, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. No, mo perfect class mo vo yuan chi mo mala. Bueno, lilo mo kama me lilo PDF. Lilo PDF sa fo, sa lilo PDF sa. Basically mo na vo ila.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Kirtana Gana Prabhu Mamritam Vanidhi Veera Veera
Sorry. Shalika Prabhu. Where is he? Disappeared. Shalika? Okay. Okay. Shalika Prabhu, I have a picture which is in JPEG, right? Can they print from that, or they have to have it on PDF?
You can print JPEG.
They can do that, right? Printing
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'll tell them that. Okay. Okay, Hare Krishna. So so text 5. A wrong act committed by a servant leads people in general to blame his master. right? A wrong act committed by a servant generally blames the master. Just as a spot of white leprosy on any part of the body pollutes all of the skin. So if you have, white leprosy, sometimes people have a mark and it's white, right? It's called white leprosy because part of the body becomes not dark, but, completely white. So he said, when someone has a little bit of white leprosy like that, then that is considered like the whole skin is contaminated. Okay, because the idea is this thing can spread. So Lord Vishnu is saying, if you have any white spot on your skin, that contaminates the whole skin. So one or two, rotten apple in my seva just actually pollutes, gives a wrong impression of me. Look at the humility of the Lord. So someone read the purport, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can I read?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
A Vaishnava, therefore, should be fully qualified as stated in Bhagavatam. Anyone who has become Vaishnava has developed all the good qualities of demigods. There are 26 qualities mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. A devotee should always see that his Vaishnava quality increase with the advancement of his Krishna consciousness. A devotee should be blameless because any offense by the devotee is a scare on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's duty is to be always conscious in his dealing with others, especially with other devotees of the Lord.
Basically, when you're a devotee, you're carrying the flag of the Lord, Dharma Dhwaj. We're carrying the flag of Dharma. And therefore, our character has to reflect that Dharma, has to reflect that character. We are devotees of the Lord, so we are representing Him, and therefore our character should be of such quality, right? So why does it say Vaishnava has developed all the good qualities of the demigods? Because generally the demigods, they are very, very much dedicated to the Supreme Lord. That's why they are given such high positions. Sometimes they may be contaminated by a bit of pride, a bit of envy or anger, but generally they are always in accordance. Their services is concordant with the Lord. There's no discordance in their service. So they're always very obedient to the Lord and doing whatever is required for the management of the universal affairs. So they are considered devotees of the Lord, right? So therefore here, it is said that one has to develop good qualities, like the qualities of the Suras. So because we are dealing on behalf of the Lord, then it's important that as we have advanced, our qualities increases, good qualities increases. Okay? Hare Krishna. Anyone in the entire world, even down to the Chandala, who lives by cooking and eating the flesh of a dog, is immediately purified if he takes bath in hearing through the ear the glorification of my name and form. Now you have realized me without doubt. Therefore, I will not hesitate to lop off my arm if its conduct is found hostile to you. Are you following this? Right? The Lord is saying that I can actually lop off my arm if the hostile of a devotee, of a Brahmana, is hostile to you. I'll take responsibility to the point of lopping off my arm. See how much love the Lord has for his Brahmana devotees. So he's even saying that if one even comes from the lowest rungs of society, and he's a dog eater, he's a Chandala. Dog is considered to be a very low-class animal, even though in the West now, the dog is glorified like, it's like a human being. The dog is considered a very low-class animal. And eating the flesh of a low-class animal is even considered very, very low. So Chandalas are a particular caste of people who actually eat dogs. So if a Chandala is living his life cooking and eating dog flesh, but by becoming purified, he becomes a devotee, right? So he says, now you have realized me without doubt, therefore I will not hesitate. So now that you have completely realized me, now, he says now, that you have completely realized me without doubt. They had some doubts, that's why they were coming to see the Lord in Vaikuntha. All the explanations were given to them by their father. They were hearing, and then they've come forward to see the Lord. So they had some doubts, so they just wanted to go and satisfy their doubts and remove this gray corner in their heart. But now that you have realized me without doubt, therefore I will not hesitate. All right? If anyone is hostile to you, my dear boys, right, and they are my servant, I will take the responsibility to the point of cutting my own arm. Right? So he's making a comparison that a Chandala is purified by hearing the name and the fame of the Lord. But these are Jnani devotees. And Jnani devotee is one who has full knowledge of the absolute, but doesn't have understanding that the Lord has qualities and is a person, which means he is in Brahman. That means he understands the supreme absolute truth, but not in its fullest, but by knowledge in realization of the supreme absolute truth being Brahman, like the four boys has understood. Now, when these devotees, this kind of devotees who have full knowledge of the absolute, they actually become devotees of the Lord. They are jnanis. They become devotees of the Lord. They are considered the best of the best of the best. And where does Krishna explain this? Again in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 18. Tesam jnani nitya yukta eka bhaktir vishishyate. Right? So he explains this. That there's four types of people who surrender to me. There's the artha, the arthati, and the jigyasu, and then there's a jnani. Okay? And he said, all these four are all magnanimous to me because they've approached me. Right? But he says, in 17, Tesam jnani nitya yukta eka bhaktir vishishyate. Priyohi jnanino tyartham amcha samama priya. Of these, one who is in full knowledge, the jnani bhakta, just like these boys, the incarnation of the Lord's knowledge. They're incredibly powerful. So of these, one who is full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best. For I am very dear to him and is very dear to me. So such great personalities. So if we read the purport, I read the purport. This is Bhagavad Gita 7:17. In the middle of the purport, it is said, by searching after knowledge, one realizes that his self is different from his material body. And then further advanced, he comes to the knowledge of impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. Remember the two stages, Brahman, Paramatma. So these boys have understanding of Brahman, Paramatma. They have no understanding, as they have no personal association. They have never seen, never had darshan of the Supreme Lord in his personal feature. And therefore, when one is fully purified, he realizes that his constitutional position is to be an eternal servant of the Lord. So even though these were highly advanced souls, these four Brahmana boys, their complete purification of consciousness came, and the transformation came by smelling the lotus toe and the tulsi and the sandalwood, and having darshan of the Lord. So now they are pure devotees of the Lord, completely engaged in that. So therefore they are considered very elevated. And therefore I will not hesitate. So the Lord is saying, now you have realized me without doubt. He's speaking in the present, not of what they were now. He says, therefore I will not hesitate to lop off my arm. If anyone's conduct is hostile to you. But previously the idea of them being cursed to go down to the material world was approved by the Lord. He said, I would do the same. Deva Helanat, I would do the same. Okay, let's move on to the text 7. Yat sevaya charana padma pavitrurenam sadhya shakta kilamalam bradilam balilam nashri viraktam abhimam avijahati yasya prekshadavartha itare niyamam vihanti. The Lord continued, because I'm the servitor of my devotees. My lotus feet have become so sacred that they immediately wipe out all sins. So the Lord continued, because I am the servitor of my devotee. Didn't I tell you that this is a very interesting section? The Lord is saying that I'm the servitor of my devotee. My lotus feet have become so sacred that they immediately wipe out all sin. And I have acquired such a disposition that the goddess of fortune does not leave me, even though I have no attachment for her. So the Lord has no attachment for the goddess of fortune, but his lotus feet has become so attractive that even the goddess of fortune do not want to leave that lotus feet. And why is it become so sacred? Because of his association, of his being surrounded by his devotees. Okay? So in the last part it says, and others praise her beauty and observe sacred vows to secure from her even the slight favor. But the Lord is not attached to Lakshmi Devi. Do you understand the point? Because his lotus feet have become so sacred that, why? Because of his association with his devotees. So the Lord is giving credit to his devotees. Right? So this is real exchange of love between the devotee and the Lord. Someone read the purport.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Go on, Prabhu, read.
Yes. The relationship between the Lord and his devotees is accidentally beautiful. As devotees think that it is due to being devotee of the Lord, but he elevated all qualities. So the Lord also thinks that it is because of his devotion to the servitor that all his transcendental glories had increased. In other words, as the devotee is always anxious to render service to the Lord, so the Lord is ever anxious to render service to the devotee. The Lord admits in that, though he certainly has the quality that anyone who receives a slight particle of death, of that of lotus, becomes towards a great personality. His greatness is to his affection for his devotees. It is because of his affection that the gods of fortune does not leave him, and that has not only one, many thousands of goddesses of fortune engaged in his service. In material world, some get a little favor from the gods of fortune. People observe many regulations of austerity and penance. The Lord not tolerate any inconvenience on the part of the devotee. He is therefore famous as Vasala. Hare Krishna.
So the Lord is saying how the glories of he's singing the glories of his devotees, right? Because of his devotion, the Lord thinks that it is because of his devotion to the servitor that all his transcendental glories have increased. So the Lord is glorifying his devotees because he's Bhakta Vatsala. The devotee is always anxious to render service to the Lord. But the Lord is also always anxious to render service to the devotee. This is the gist of this purport here. Because the Lord, he will not tolerate any inconvenience, any problem, any difficulty that his devotee, pure devotee, will undergo. So that's why when he saw the escalation of the situation with Jai Vijay and the Brahmana boys, he immediately came, even though at that point they had just like that, they had just been transformed into becoming pure devotees. So just understand that when we say, if you read the verse, the Atmarama verse in the first canto, Atmaramas, which means self-satisfied devotees, self-satisfied impersonalists or jnanis, who are not in need of anything. But when they come in contact with the qualities of the devotee, they undergo transformation and they become more elevated. Atmaramas chamunnayor nirgrante apyuruktume. Kurvantim ahetukim bhaktim itambuto guno hari. They are self-satisfied and they are nirgranta, they are unattached. But when they come in contact with the qualities of the devotee, they become absolutely absorbed and attached to the qualities of the lotus feet of the Lord. Right? So this is the explanation of how the Lord's qualities actually make the transformation. And we've seen that. So therefore he's saying now that you all have completely transformed, and they've been transformed by the mercy of the quality, by the mercy of the different qualities of the Lord. Okay, so text 8. Naham tadadmi yajamana havir vithane syotad griha prutamadan hutabhun mukheno yad brahmanasya mukharas charato nughasyam Tushtayamai avaiter nijakarma pakai. I do not enjoy the oblations offered by the sacrifice in the sacrificial fire, which is of my own mouth, with the same relish as I do the delicacies overflowing with ghee, which is offered to the mouth of the Brahmanas, who have dedicated to me the result of their activities and who are ever satisfied with my prasada. So generally, the sacrificial fire is considered the mouth of Lord Vishnu. So when we take the spoon and we offer the sacrificial grains and the ghee and the fruits and whatever we offer in the fire, then that is like offering directly into the mouth of Lord Vishnu. But he's saying that even if you offer me all these great yagyas and do all these makha, these yagyas for me, and I am not as much satisfied by these yagyas, even though you're giving me the offerings. But when you make beautiful, nice prasadam, delicacies, and you offer them to my Brahmana devotees, right? So he said, I do not relish with the same sort of intensity those offerings in the fire as I relish that when nice delicacies are prepared and offered to the Brahmanas, and the Brahmanas are satisfied, then I'm satisfied. So that's the essence of this verse in a way. So the mouth of the Brahmanas have dedicated to me the results of the activities. So the Brahmanas are always engaged in the service of the Lord. So offering something nice to the Brahmanas, then the Lord is actually satisfied. You follow? So the idea of cooking for the devotees is more pleasing to the Lord. So naturally we cook and then we offer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we offer the prasadam to the devotees. So if you want to really satisfy Lord Vishnu, then if you invite devotees in your home and you make wonderful arrangement to cook nice prasadam, bhoga, and you offer to Lord Vishnu in the aim of offering to your guest, Brahmana guest, the Lord is absolutely thrilled to relish such bhoga. And that's what he's saying here. If the idea is to cook for the Brahmanas, it's more satisfying than offering direct oblations of grains and ghee on a fire, and the flame is considered the tongues of Lord Vishnu. Not so satisfying. Okay, so any questions or comment? So this is a practice that has existed in Sanatana Dharma, in Vedic culture, at every occasion, at every auspicious occasion, festival occasions, family, sanskar or vidhis, a child is born, marriage ceremony, and so on and so forth. But of course, it is now being ruined by, Bollywood, Hollywood, and all these nonsense people. But generally, those were considered samskaras. They are rituals, rites of passage from one status of life to another status of life. And whenever devotees, they do that, then they have guests, minimum 5 guests. My father used to say, you have to invite minimum 5 people. And then you have to feed those people. And the best is you invite Brahmanas or you invite devotees. Then you get the best of all blessings when you invite devotees and you make nice arrangement and you cook and serve them. Okay? Yes, Prabhu. What is your question?
Yes, all along the passage, we heard that the 4 Kumaras heard from their father, Lord Brahma. But still, all along the passage, they were considered impersonalists, jnanis. So I'm wondering, what did the Lord Brahma told them about the Lord? Did he not explain the personal aspect of the Lord to them? And in that wise, if the 4 Kumaras who heard from Brahma were considered jnanis, and we are also hearing now, but we have not realized that directly the Lord yet, what is the difference between the 4 Kumaras and us now?
It's a process. They've been hearing from the Lord. They've been hearing from the pure devotee, their father, Lord Brahma. So because they were highly elevated personalities, they could actually have the make plan to go and see the Lord because they were free to travel because of their very high status, and they were elevated personalities and they were living in a different age. So after hearing about the qualities of the Lord, they wanted to go and see him to satisfy their curiosity. We want to go and see the Lord. So one thing is, just like we are hearing about Srimad Bhagavatam, we are hearing about the pastimes of Krishna. But ultimately, isn't that your desire, to be able to see the Lord face to face?
Yes, that is it. But so does that put us into a state of journeys for the meantime?
It doesn't. You're a devotee, but you haven't seen the Lord face to face. But you have to see the Lord face to face by viveka, by understanding, by darshan. When we see the deity in the Lord, because you're already a devotee, you can understand that this is a Lord. But you don't get the full impact of that understanding because of our contaminated mind and senses. But it is a Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When you go to Vrindavan even, the Lord has walked all over the place. His dust is everywhere. But still you do not have the full impact of the realization that the Lord is present. Because we understand it by viveka, by clear understanding, by discriminatory intelligence. That's what we are trying to do. And by studying Shastra, by chanting, so that we have full realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His name, in His pastimes, in His form, in His dham. But because of the influences of the lower modes of nature, our realization are not complete. Therefore, we're not able to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we do realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we'll get the same transformation as the boys get, even though we're not impersonalist. But the process is the same. They were impersonalists, doesn't mean that they were, just be careful. Impersonalists doesn't mean that they were offensive. They just understood the impersonal feature of the Lord. And they were eager to see the personal feature of the Lord. After going step 1, step 2, they wanted to go to step 3. Now we are approaching to understand the step 3 of the Lord in our immature state. We are approaching to see the Lord in step 3. We are not concerned about Brahman. We have some concern about Paramatma because he guides us. Not so concerned about Brahman. But we understand everything is situated on Brahman. We are somewhat concerned about Paramatma because he guides us. He's within us. And we want to see him present everywhere because an aspect of the Lord. But we are more concerned to be able to get darshan of the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord Govinda, Shama Sundar. But we already been given information about this Shama Sundar. Just like Lord Brahma must have given the information about Lord Vishnu to them. But we've been given information about Govinda, about Lord Shama Sundar, but we have no full realization of him. So we are approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his highest form, but we are in an immature state. Does that make sense, Prabhu?
Yes. Actually, it makes this deep sense to me. We are in the immature state.
Because we haven't come to fully realize. When we do come to fully realize, we will experience the same change in consciousness. Okay?
Yes.
Anyone else want to add something? So the yogis.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah.
Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Go on.
What I want to add is that does it mean there's hope for us if we continue like this, that we will eventually see the Lord face to face? We have hope.
That's the idea. That's the idea, no? But you can see the Lord face to face even in this body, in this life. Because the Lord is not limited. We are limited. When we remove our limitation, we will see him. So what we are trying to do is we are approaching him from a limited condition angle. But when our conditioning and our limitations are removed, he's right there. So just understand the complete wholesome understanding. Okay, I will see the Lord face to face when I go home back to Godhead. What do you mean the Lord is not here? The Lord is here.
Everywhere.
Yeah, he's everywhere, but also he can be here. Just like the Lord appeared in front of Dhruva Maharaj, he can appear. But what we have to remove is our conditioning. right? So I'm glad with this discussion because we understand Brahman, we understand the yogi is also doing Brahman realization. The yogi is going for Paramatma realization. The yogi is trying to find the Lord in the heart. The impersonality is trying to understand Brahman as impersonal. The yogi is trying to find the Lord in the heart, right? Which is the first step in God realization. And that's why second canto, first chapter is like that. So understanding Paramatma is important. Paramatma realization is very important. But the Lord is beyond Paramatma. And that is what we realize, but that's what the aim is. Okay. So yes, Jyotishwara Prabhu, you had a question?
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, I wanted to know, like Jai and Vijay, actually they were doing their duty. But they were part of administration, I can say. They were doing their duty, and in that duty, servicing the Lord, they have committed offense. Maybe it was not knowingly or intentionally, it was unknowingly. And they have, God, Lord has punished them, or maybe given them another chance to serve another way. So, Prabhuji, my question is, even we devotee, sometimes we do our service in a temple in a part like management side, or maybe we are doing any service and unknowingly we are offending anyone, is like offense to the devotee. So surely, Prabhuji, we will get punishment for that. So Prabhuji, these minute things, how we can overcome, and what is the main thing we have to see so that we are not commencing offenses towards, devotee and even non-devotees.
The idea is, you see, Krishna is the one quality that Krishna does not like. One thing that he completely abhors is pride. Pride and bhakti, pride and devotion, they don't go together. It's like putting salt in ice cream. They just don't go together. So this one thing that actually the root cause is our ego, our ahankara, our pride is a root cause of offenses. We become judgmental, we become demeaning, we try to analyze other people because of pride. So if you look at the verse of Lord Chaitanya, he says, Trinadapi sunichena, become humble as a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. Amanina, and you become amanina, manadena. So it starts with becoming manadena. It starts with giving respect to others. So when we start giving respect to others, then we don't expect any respect for ourselves. Then we become tolerant. Then we become truly humble. It goes in the reverse way. Because those are practicalities. Giving respect is a practical thing that we can do. Becoming humble is actually a state of very high alert consciousness of being a servant of the Lord. But consciously giving respect to others is the first and foremost quality of a devotee. When you give respect to others, you get rid of your pride. Then when you gradually get rid of the pride, then you become amani. You don't expect things for yourself. You become mana dena, more. So it goes amani, mana dena, amani, amani, mana dena. So it goes like that. You don't expect, you give respect to others. Then you become tolerant also. Because you're not expecting anything, so you don't get disappointed. You realize your position as a servant. And then in that way, you develop genuine humility. And then you cannot, but it takes a few years of practice, Krishna consciousness, being in the right association, asking the right questions and taking care of our spiritual life in a nice way. But that's just the essence of it. It's just like Indra. Indra was very powerful. Indra was very powerful. And he had so much. Interrupt. Can you please mute? So he had so much pride, and he wanted to crush Govardhan, but Lord Krishna took care of his pride. It's one thing that he doesn't like. So we have to understand that this is the best way. Give respect to others. Don't expect respect for yourself. And then you can truly become humble. And then that way we will not offend anyone. And by understanding that Lord Krishna, he respects everyone who is trying to be a devotee. So why shouldn't we? And you can see here the example of Lord Vishnu, right? So does that answer somewhat your question, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I understand. Hare Krishna.
Rasavan, what is your question?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much for this insight you are giving us. But for now, we've seen through how the four Kumbaras passed through various gates. The first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one, the sixth gate. And now they read the seventh gate, and now they were prevented by the two gatekeepers. Prabhu, could you please explain a little to us the different stratas of these gates for our understanding?
There isn't much explanation that I have read about the different gates and what do they represent. And so I cannot, the people in the South Indian people, they are more in tune with these things. I have no information on any of this. But you can find out otherwise. So let me read this. Let me read this text 8. The devotee of the Lord or the Vaishnava does not take anything without offering it to the Lord. Since a Vaishnava dedicates all the result of his activities to the Lord, he does not taste anything eatable which is not first offered to the Lord. So we use this practice of doing everything for the Lord. So we're not going to eat anything that's not offered to the Lord. The Lord also relishes giving to the Vaishnava's mouth all eatables offered to him. Now it is clear from this verse that the Lord eats through the sacrificial fire and also the Brahmana's mouth. So there's so many articles, grains, ghee offered in sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord. The Lord accepts sacrificial offerings from the Brahmanas and devotees, and elsewhere it is stated that whatever is given for the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas to eat is also accepted by the Lord. So in a very subtle way, it's very interesting here. But here it is said that he accepts offering to the mouth of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas with even greater relish. Right? So when the Lord becomes happy to accept these offerings when we are feeding the devotees. So there's an example given here in the life of Advaita Acharya in his dealings with Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur was a Vaishnava of the highest caliber, but he was from a Mohammedan family, right? So Advaita Prabhu, he offered him the first dish of prasad after the performance of the sacred fire ceremony. There was a sacred fire ceremony he had done. I think it was a Pinda ceremony with a departed person. And then he invited the Brahmanas to eat, but he offered first to Haridas Thakur. Right? But out of his humility, why was Advaita offering to Haridas Thakur, even though he was from a Mohammedan family? Because he was of a highest caliber devotee. He was a Namacharya. So out of his humbleness, Haridas condemned himself as Mohammedan. He said, no, I cannot accept this, my Lord. The Brahmanas here, you feed them. But Advaita Prabhu, being an experienced devotee, accepted him as a real Brahmana. The Advaita Acharya could see that he's Namacharya. He's more advanced, even though he's low-born in a way. And Advaita Acharya said that by offering this first dish to Haridas Thakur, he was getting the result of feeding 100,000 Brahmanas. Because you feed a Brahmana who is Brahmana, Janiti Brahmana, a Brahmana who is situated in Brahman is one thing, but a Vaishnava devotee who is worshipping the Lord is higher in status than a Brahmana. And offering the Vaishnava something to eat is like offering 100,000 Brahmanas and a Vaishnava of the caliber of Haridas Thakur. So in conclusion, if one can feed a Brahmana or Vaishnava, it is better than performing hundreds of thousands of sacrifice. There's something quite interesting about this that you see in the Sanatan culture, in the life of devotees. They actually have, I've seen in many families, that they make such an effort to feed sannyasis or to feed senior Vaishnavas or senior devotees. And they go to great lengths to prepare nice place to receive them. They buy nice juice, they have nice utensils, and then they cook nice bhoga, they offer it to the Lord, and then they come and feed the Brahmanas, the Vaishnavas. And this was being done here by Advaita Acharya. So in conclusion, the feeding of a Brahmana or a Vaishnava, it is better than performing 100,000s of sacrifices. So in this age, therefore, it is recommended the chanting of the holy name and pleasing the Vaishnava. So Jivedoya, Name Ruchi, Vaishnava Sevan. If you preach Jivedoya, Name Ruchi, we chant the holy name, and Vaishnava Sevan, we serve the devotees. So these are the free motto of a Vaishnava's life. A devotee, he jivedoya, he is compassionate to the conditioned souls, he's preaching, he's engaged in missionary work, trying his best to propagate the mission of Lord Chaitanya. Then Name Ruchi, he chants the holy name of Krishna himself, and Vaishnava Sevan, he serves the Vaishnavas. And that way he elevates himself in his spiritual life. Okay? So I don't know how is that culture going in the West or in African cultures or elsewhere. But I know in Africa, people are generally quite hospitable, no? They invite people. I know they do big feast when someone is dead, but I'm saying in general, it's always good to invite senior Vaishnavas to your home. And that is a guaranteed aspect of devotional life. So, yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Yes, go on.
Yeah. As you were saying, yes, you don't know how it is going. First of all, I really appreciate this aspect of the text 8, and which talks about feeding Brahmins and or Vaishnavas. And I think that is very good, especially this is a very great favor for us in Kali Yuga, because even performing fire yajnas, so many sacrificials, especially like doing fire yajna, it entails so many things. And when you make offenses during the performance of the yajna, it also affects so many things and changes a whole lot of things. So feeding Vaishnavas, arranging and getting nice utensils, getting prasad, I think that one is easier to go than to performing yajna. And this is a great favor from the Lord by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Trinity and other Prabhu. Yeah. And continuously, as you said, that yes, Africans are distant. Sometimes we spend so much food and so many things when a person is dead. Yes, of course. But we coming into Krishna consciousness, or we having come in knowledge in Krishna consciousness, we have given up those things. We stay away from those things, and we try to follow the Vaishnava Dharma, and that is very unique. So over here in West Africa, yes, we see so many devotees invite even our own blacks. We invite devotees to our homes, and we feed the senior devotees or Brahmanas or Vaishnavas. So we are trying to follow him, but though he's not the best and he's not able to go on as we always wish, but we try to follow in the best footsteps. So thank you. It's very nice. And I like the fact of coming to realize, I have never realized this coming in contact with this 8, that it is better to feed the Vaishnavas or the Brahmanas than to perform more yajna. Thank you.
Yeah, because you see, the performance of yajna is very visual. It looks more powerful, but it isn't. Because you have a big sacrifice, and then, you know, the chanting of mantras, it looks more religious.
Yeah.
It looks more visual. It's more like a performance, and everyone can see this person is very dharmic. But actually, inviting devotees to take prasad at your home and hearing katha from them is much better. Quite amazing, because as Kali Yuga goes on,
yes,
these principles, with the value of these principles, become more and more clear, because it's going to become more and more difficult to get proper brahmanas to do these mantras and perform these yajnas. So if we can just invite some devotees, have nice kirtan and serve them prasadam, it goes a long way.
That's the best. Thank you.
So actually, you know, one of the things you could do, which I had quite some experience about this when we were young and in Krishna consciousness. Even before we joined Krishna consciousness, my parents were always for festivals, for Ekadashis, for Tithis, for Janmashtami. They'd have celebration at home and they'd invite half the village, maybe 50, 100, 200 people. And then the villagers would come, they would help, and they would cook and this and that, and then they would have prasadam. And when I became devotees in the early days, and you know, we were holding programs every Saturday in different devotees' homes. And then the devotees would cook prasad, and then we invite 1 or 2 senior devotees, and then we would go and then we will have a whole program from 3 o'clock, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock on Saturdays, and then everyone will be served prasadam. And that was, it created a very joyful mood.
Yes,
so,
very nice.
You know, because on Saturdays, generally, you know, Saturdays are enjoyment days. Saturdays are days where you want to go and watch, you know, Michael Hessian play against, you know, whatever, you know, you know, football, you know,
yes,
you know, and
yes.
or you want to go to movies or something like that. But Saturdays you can dedicate. Sundays sometimes you go to the temple. Saturdays, if you can, convert those days and make simple arrangements. You don't have to have lots of money. It's a question of desire. Krishna has given enough.
Yeah.
Whatever means you have.
Yeah.
Fruits and vegetables and some rice and some puris. And, you know, the main thing is the sweetness of association.
Yes.
I remember when I came to Ghana and the devotees had a hard time cooking Vedic food. And I cooked the Sunday feast once or twice. I went and downtown, and we went and we bought, and things were expensive, I remember. But I cooked personally, and then the Matajis were asking me to teach them how to cook. So I'm a cook, you know, I can cook anything. So I was teaching them to cook, and they kind of appreciated. Shivas Prabhu will tell you. So in Ghana, in the Media Temple, and even in Lagos, I was trying to cook. There was Ram, but there was some devotees there, and I was teaching them how to cook. Even our dear Damodar Maharaj, I was showing him how to cook. You know, things like that. So we should cook and offer and serve devotees. I don't have the energy anymore, but it's good to do that. And Bali Prabhu was there, I remember, and he had gathered a lot of ingredients, and we had cooked at the Lagos temple a big feast, and he was very happy. So like that, we can do, you know, you can invite. So if you can actually, with your family, create a nice atmosphere, make a nice setting, and invite your friends, invite some devotees to take prasad and talk about Krishna. It goes a long way. It goes a long way. Okay,
Yes.
let's carry on with this. Very good. So I'm on text 10.
Text 9.
So I'm the master of my unobstructed internal energy. Okay. And the water of the Ganges is a remnant left after my feet are washed. So this unobstructed material, internal energy, the Lord is Vishuddha Sattva. He is a pure transcendental energy, which is a manifestation of his internal potency. So he's a master of that internal energy that cannot be obstructed in any way, because the powerful energy, the spiritual Swarup Shakti of the Lord. And in the same way, the water of the Ganges washed the toe of his feet, and it descends to this material world. And that Ganges water sanctifies the three worlds, along with Lord Shiva, who bears it on his head when Ganges come down from the other planetary systems. If I can take the dust of the feet of the Vaishnava on my head, who will refuse to do the same? So he's saying, in essence, that my feet is washed by Ganga, and then Ganga is purified further by falling on the head of Lord Vishnu, and that Ganges is considered sanctified. But the dust of the feet of the Vaishnava is considered more sanctified. So there's a saying that Mother Ganges was reluctant to come to the earth planet. And he said that sinners will bathe in my water, and they will contaminate me with their leftover sins in my water. Then what will happen to me? Then the Lord gave her this guarantee. He said, but when the Vaishnavas come and they bathe in your water, you will be purified. So Gangara Parasa Oile Paschate Pavan. So by taking bath in the Ganges, regularly one can become purified. By taking Tomara Darshana, Vaishnava Darshana, by taking the darshan of a Vaishnava, Tomara Gun, you get purified immediately. So the Lord is glorifying the Vaishnavas in this section, right? So if I can take the dust of the Vaishnava on my head, who will refuse to take the dust of a Vaishnava? So he's explaining to the newly made Vaishnava devotees who are very advanced, nevertheless, the four Kumaras. Okay? So let's, I think there's some repetitive information in the purport. So let's go to text 10. The Brahmanas, the cows, and the defenseless creatures are my own body. So the Lord is very happy with the Brahmanas. He likes Brahmanas. He likes the cows. And he also likes the defenseless creatures. Defenseless creatures can mean children, can mean old people, can mean women, and can mean also animals who cannot defend for themselves. Right? But generally, okay, here Prabhupada puts it in the purport. So the Brahmanas, the cows, and the defenseless creatures are my own body. Those whose faculty of judgment have been impaired by their own sin look upon these as distinct from me. They are just like furious serpents, and they are angrily torn apart by the bills of the vulture-like messengers of Yamaraj, the superintendent of sinful death, of sinful persons. So Lord Vishnu is saying that defenseless creatures, according to Manu Samhita, or the cows, the Brahmanas, because the Brahmanas are peaceful by nature. The cows are exactly the same. They're peaceful by nature. Cows not going to attack anyone. Right? That's just the demoniac people. They have some bulls that may be a little bit aggressive, but they're made more aggressive generally by the way they are treated and they are trained. That's why they are bullfighting. But bulls and cows are generally very docile animals. And similarly, Brahmanas are also very soft, kind, gentle, and they cannot fend for themselves. And women, children and old men. So of these five, the Brahmanas and cows are specially mentioned in the verse because the Lord is always anxious about the benefit of the Brahmanas and the cows. Right? So we know the story that Lord Brahma, he stole the cows, and that really infuriated Krishna in the 10th canto. And therefore, he knows about it, he stole the cows. So when Indra was very, very ashamed and he was fearful because he loved Krishna in a way, but he had upset him by trying to destroy the Govardhan and trying to destroy Vrindavan by rain and thunderbolt and lightning, and he himself striking with his trident upon the mountain Govardhan. Then he went to get some advice. He said, how am I going to approach him? He said, you approach him because take Surabhi with you. So Indra took Surabhi and he put Surabhi in the front. So when Krishna saw Surabhi, celestial cow, and he was very happy, he became peaceful, he was sitting alone, and he was contemplating the status of Govardhan after the deluge and the huge attack of Indra. And he went to verify how much damage has been done to his Govardhan because he considered it close to him. So therefore he sent Surabhi in the front. And Surabhi, when Surabhi came, Su means good, Arabhi means Aramban, one, you start something good, always with a cow. So then the Lord became very pacified, and then the Lord didn't talk to Indra, but he meant so many things to him. Indra was praying to him, but because of the cow. So the Brahmanas and the cows, they are the most favorite of the Lord. The Lord specially instructs, therefore, that no one should be envious of these five, especially the cows and the Brahmanas, and the old men, the children, and the women. One should always be very respectful and careful to protect them. In some of the Bhagavatam readings, the word Duhitri is used instead of Duhattihi. But in either case, the meaning is the same. Duhattihi means cow, and Duhitri also used to mean cow because the cow is supposed to be the daughter of the sun god. So just as children are taken care of by their parents, women as a class should be taken care of by the father, husband of the grown-up sons. Unfortunately, the world is going in a topsy-turvy way. There's this political wing of people who are thinking that feminism and liberation of the women. And it is going to backfire in a massive way, because women who are self-assertive, who are independent, and actually a huge curse for human civilization. Huge curse for human civilization. So this is something that's happening nowadays. Those who are helpless must be taken care of by their respective guardians. Otherwise, the guardians will be subject to the punishment of Yamaraj. So one who has a responsibility to take care of these things, then he has to live up to that responsibility. Otherwise, we suffer consequences. Otherwise, the guardians will be subjected to the punishment of Yamaraj, who is appointed by the Lord to supervise the activities of sinful living creatures. So the assistants or messengers of Yamaraj are likened here to vultures, and those who do not execute their respective duties in protecting their wards are compared to serpents. So vultures will generally attack the serpent. So we should not be like serpents and trying to hurt innocent individuals. Okay, so this is all glorification of the Brahmana devotees, of the devotees. Okay. Ye Brahmanam Maidi Yashipato Rachayantas Tusyadrida smita dokshita padma vaktrai Anyanuraga kalayan majavad grinanta sambodayandiyaham ivahang upahritastai. On the other hand, they captivate my heart, who are gladdened in heart, and who the lotus faces enlightened by nectar and smile respect the Brahmanas. Even though the Brahmanas utter harsh words, they look upon the Brahmanas as my own self and pacify them. By praising them in loving words, even as a son would appease an angry father, or as I am pacifying you. So the Lord is taking on the position as being like a father. And he's saying, just like as I'm pacifying you. So those whose hearts are gladdened like the Brahmanas will pacify anyone. So he says that we should respect the Brahmanas, even if the Brahmanas sometimes use harsh words. Now, you see the tone of the Lord is changing. Listen carefully. So yes, the Lord has said nice things about the Brahmana boys. Right, so far. You see the tone is changing? Now he said, but one should always respect the Brahmanas, even though sometimes the Brahmanas use harsh words. What is he hinting? That these 4 boys have been a little bit harsh with my servants here. So you see, the Lord has been very kind, very sympathetic, very empathetic, very understanding. But now he is also be very just in his approach. And the Lord, the way of his dealing, the verses are very intricate, very detailed. Right? So he says, even though the Brahmanas utter harsh words, they look upon the Brahmanas as my own self and pacify them by praising them in loving words. So in a way, he's indirectly rebuking them. He's reproaching them indirectly. That, you know, if you're a Brahmana, then why do you use such harsh words and cursing them immediately? That's what he's saying. Okay. So someone read the purport for me.
Hey, Krishna. It's been observed in many instances in various scriptures when the Brahmana or Vaishnava curse someone in an angry mood, the person who is cursed not take it up himself to treat the Brahmana or Vaishnavas in the same way. There are many examples of this. For instance, the son of Para, cursed by the grace Narada, not take in the same hard way. Subted here or when Vijaya were cursed by 4 quarrels, it did not come hard toward them. Rather, they submitted. That should be the way of treating Brahmana Vaishnavas.
So Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So the sons of Kuvera, we read in the Damodar Leela, sons of Kuvera, Manikriva and Alakuvara, they were cursed by Narada. Right? But the sons of Kuvera, they did not seek revenge in the same harsh way. So similarly here, the Jain Vijay, they did not seek any revenge for the curse that was offered to them by the Vaishnava boys. Right? So Jain Vijay, they were cursed by the 4 Kumaras, but they did not retaliate. Why? Because they had respect for Brahmanas. So that's what the verse is saying now, is that so if the Brahmanas would treat them in a harsh way, they would not actually retreat back. Now, in our version of society, in our version of our culture, we do not actually, we should practice this. We should practice this mood that, okay, he is a senior Vaishnava, he's a Brahmana devotee, so I will submit myself. So that should be the way of treating Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, is do not fight back in a harsh way. So we may be faced in a grievous situation created by a Brahmana, but instead of meeting him with a similar mood, one should try to pacify him, smiling face and mild treatment. So, let us see, Jai and Vijay, what did they do? They tried to stop the Brahmanas, and then the curses were hurled at them. But what did they do? What did Jai and Vijay do? Can you remember? Yes, I'm waiting. They immediately, yes, go on.
Apologize.
Yeah, they immediately realized a mistake, and they immediately went down on the floor, paid obeisances, and said, "I'm really sorry, please forgive us. I think, yeah, we did a mistake here. And please do not, yeah, we accept your curse, but do not curse us that we forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead." They did not retaliate. They did not retaliate at all. And Nalakuvara and Manigriva were cursed, and they did not retaliate. Jai and Vijay did not retaliate in the same way, right? Why? Because Brahmanas and Vaishnavas should be accepted as earthly representative of Narayan. And instead, when we see them angry, we should just folded hands. Prabhuji, really sorry. Let's just sort this out. Apologize to you. Maybe I said something out of context. Maybe, and in a nice smiling way, just de-escalate the situation and not go for, further offense. And therefore, it is said, the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas should be accepted as earthly representatives of Lord Narayan. Right? And then Prabhupada goes on, slightly on the side, explaining that doesn't mean that foolish poor people are considered Daridra Narayan. This is the way of impersonalist addressing that we should treat poor people as representatives of Narayan. Prabhupada didn't buy into that philosophy. So impersonalists say that if you feed the poor, they are Daridra Narayan. That is Narayan in the form of poor people. The Prabhupada didn't buy into that philosophy. And he's saying, foolish people have manufactured this philosophy. And I don't buy into that. But the Vedic literatures, we do not find poor men should be treated as representatives of Narayan, of course. Right? So the poor man should not be unprotected, but the Brahmana should specially be treated as a representative of Narayan. So protection of Brahmana is a prime principle of Varnashram culture. Prime principle of Varnashram culture. And if Brahmana is offended, if a devotee, well-meaning devotee, is doing his service, and by our disregard, by our neglect, by our lack of etiquette, by our lack of presentation, skill, or by our pride, or by any way, if a Brahmana devotee who's well-meaning, who's kind, gentle, and he's doing his service the best he can, and you kind of offend him, that can be very serious. So it is specifically said that to pacify the Brahmanas whose face should be lotus-like. A lotus-like face is exhibited when one is adorned with love and affection. So one has love and affection, then that person is considered very positive and very auspicious. In this respect, the example of the father is being angry at the son and the son's pacifying with smiling and sweet words, very appropriate. It's like the dealing has to be like a father and son. So Lord is giving his own example. He said, you're a Brahmana. So if they did some mistake, Jai and Vijay, then you should try to vice versa. They should try to apologize nicely and you should try to pacify them, just like I'm doing with you. So the Lord is kind of lifting the tone up a bit and trying to educate them in a proper manner, as well as educate us in the proper manner. You see, from actually glorifying them, now he's really analyzing the reality of how things are. So in text 12, I will have to read myself because I go a bit, explain and go further because of the time. These servants of mine have transgressed against you, not knowing the mind of their master. Remember I said that in the early part? If you're listening carefully, if you cautiously listen, they were not knowing the mind of their master. They were some discordant approach to their service. How can you be servant of Lord Vaikuntanath in Vaikuntha and not know what he wants? How are you going to serve him? He's going to call you and you're like a fool and he's going to tell you everything, or you should know how to serve him. What is the first class? What is a first class servant? A first class servant. Okay, what is a third? There's 3 classes of servant. First, second, and third. Right? The first class.
Kanishta Adhikari.
Huh?
Uttam Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and Kanishta Adhikari.
Oh, that's a different category, Prabhu. That's nice, okay. But that's a different category. That's a category of level of advancement of a pure devotee of Krishna. A Kanishta, one whose faith is so-so, not so much faith. Madhyama, he is situated in good level of understanding of Shastra. He knows how to deal with devotees. And Uttama, he sees Krishna everywhere. In brief, that's a different thing. But when we are servant of our spiritual master, when the servant of the Brahmanas and servant of devotees, there's 3 categories. The one category is he immediately knows what his spiritual master need right now. If the spiritual master is looking at this, he immediately knows, oh, he needs a pen. So he brings immediately a pen and put it in front of him. He knows, okay, my spiritual master is looking, or he's looking at a book or some paper. He's following. His mind is completely in tune to the desire of the spiritual master to serve. That's a first class disciple or servant. The second class is he has to be told. He has to be told, okay, please, can you get me a pen? You know, because if the spiritual master got a paper in front of him and he's looking around, the servant should know he's looking for a pen, because he knows that if he's taken a paper, he needs a pen. But if the person is standing like this and the spiritual master has to turn to him and say, can you get me a pen? It was obvious he needed a pen. That means he's second class. He is not completely in tune with the service of the spiritual master. And the third is when he asks to do, right, he doesn't do. The first class, he knows what to do. The second class, he has to be told what to do. The third, even when he's told, he doesn't do. Right? So here, Jay and Vijay, they didn't know what the Lord likes. So he said, my servants of mine have transgressed against you, not knowing the mind of their master. I shall therefore deem it a favor done to me. So the quality of service in Vaikuntha of the highest grade, one has to be in tune with the desire of the Prabhu, of the Lord you're serving. He doesn't have to tell you, such and such time is a service. We're all in perfect service. Everything is synchronized so nicely. So I shall therefore deem it a favor done to me if you order that, although reaping the fruit of their transgression. So you see, so the Lord is approaching in such a nice way. He said, I would consider a favor that whatever curse that you've done, I would have done the same. But can you do me a favor by, after they've suffered their transgression, that they may return in my presence soon, and that their term of exile from my dham be very quick. So that means that the Lord is favoring his devotees, even though they have a small transgression. And that transgression is a mental transgression. But it got translated into an obstruction of the service of the 4 boys. It's a little bit subtle, but I hope that you can appreciate what we're trying to understand here. So he's saying, I want them returned in my presence soon, and that their time of exile from my abode may expire before long. So they go out of their service from my abode down to whatever you've cursed them to go to, material world, but that they can be returned quickly to me in my service. Can you do me that favor? You're asking the Brahmana. So can you imagine being in the position of these Brahmana boys, and Lord Vishnu is dealing with you in this way? You know, I will shrink like a small ant into the ground. The kind of humility, the kind of
highly embarrassing.
Highly embarrassing because of the incredible culture of Lord Vishnu, the high character of dealing of Lord Vishnu.
You are perplexed.
I
said you are perplexed.
I didn't understand that.
They were perplexed. They were shocked. They were perplexed. They don't know the situation again.
Perplexed. Okay, perplexed.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, well, let us see. They're actually humbled. They're not perplexed, they're humbled. So from this statement, we can understand how anxious the Lord is to get his servitor back into Vaikuntha. This incident proves that once entered the Vaikuntha planet, one can never fall down. So that's not a fall down here. It's not the same thing. The case of Jai Vijay is not a fall down, it's just an accident. The Lord is always anxious to get such devotees back again to the Vaikuntha planet as soon as possible. So there may be an accidental situation, right? But we will see a bit later also. So it is assumed that there is no possibility of misunderstanding between the Lord and the devotees. But when there are discrepancies or disruption between one devotee and another, one has to suffer the consequences. So we can assume that there should not be any misunderstanding, like there has been a misunderstanding between the desire of the Lord and the desire of the Jai Vijay to stop the boys. There's a discordancy here, right? So he said, but one has to suffer the consequences, although that suffering is temporary. So if we do a mistake, then we will suffer the consequences. And the consequences we generally suffer is sometimes we lose a taste for chanting, sometimes we become neglectful of our sadhana. And generally when a devotee is going through a tough time like that, please always look to number one. Number one is, have I offended anyone? Have I offended anyone that I'm just suddenly not able to do my sadhana as strongly as I was able to do before? Always look to number one. That's, I think, number one. So the Lord is so kind to his devotees that he took all the responsibility for the dormant's offense. The Lord took responsibility for the dormant's offense, for the two Jai Vijay's offense, and requested the sages to give them facilities to return to Vaikuntha as soon as possible, because they had hurled out the curse. So it's their responsibility that the curse is not so serious, the curse is not so heavy. So now we'll read text 13, 14 and 15, and then we will stop there. Now let us see the situation of the Kumaras. Is that okay, or you want me to stop?
Yeah. Okay, 14 and 15, if the 10 minutes will be enough to do that, because there is a regional council meeting in a 15 minutes time. So if that much time will be enough to explain the two texts, and we can go ahead.
So text, when Brahma is now correlating the incident, even though the sages have been bitten by the serpent of anger, their souls were not satiated with hearing the Lord's lovely and illuminating speech, which was like a series of Vedic hymns. So the speech of the Lord was so sweet, so auspicious, so kind, so regenerating that they were enlivened. They were enlivened and they were inspired. Text 14. The Lord's excellent speech was difficult to comprehend because of its momentous import and its most profound significance. So it's momentous import, which means that everything he said was so full and heavy of meaning for both Jai Vijay for all of us hearing from the Lord, for the Kumaras, and also from the Lord's point of view, which showing the depth and the illustrious nature of his character. The sages heard it, and with wide open ears and pondered it as well. But although hearing, they could not understand what he intended to do. So the Lord has given some options, kind of. We opened up the argument and explained it every way he can. And he could do everything he wanted, but he left it to the Brahmana boys to decide. So therefore, they could not understand what do we do, my Lord? What is the best way to proceed? We made a mistake, it's our fault. So like that, okay? So there's no difference between the Supreme Person and his speeches, for he stands on the absolute platform. The sages tried with wide open ears to understand the words from the lips of the Supreme Lord. But although his speech was very concise and meaningful, the sages could not completely comprehend what he was saying. They could not even comprehend the purport of the speech for what the Supreme Lord wanted to do, nor could they understand whether the Lord was angry or pleased. So yes, he had praised them, but also he has the kind of way, in an indirect way, rebuked them as well. So they could not. Can you mute, Madhuvan? So text 15. Te yoga maya rabdha parameshtya mahodayam rochu paranjalo yano vipra prahishta shubhitaptacha. The four Brahmana sages were nevertheless extremely delighted to behold him. So there was confusion, not able to understand, even though they were the most profound jnanis, knowledgeable persons. Understanding the Lord is not an easy thing. And at the same time, they were extremely delighted to behold the Lord, and they experienced a thrill throughout the body. So there was a transformation, apichita tanvo. Now they're experiencing the thrill of being in the presence of the Lord, hearing his beautiful voice, looking at his incredible countenance, how it was described, remember before? How the Lord is so beautiful, his ankle bell, his anklets, you know, his clothes, his whole persona, his whole personality. So they were thrilled. They then spoke as follows to the Lord, who had revealed the multi-glories of the Supreme Personality through his internal potency, Yogamaya. So the sages were almost too puzzled to speak before the Supreme Lord, and the hairs of the body stood in ends. They were experiencing ecstatic symptom, being in the presence of the Lord. The highest opulence in the material world is parameshtya. It's called parameshtya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the opulence of the highest opulence, the opulence of Brahma, but that material opulence of Brahma, Parameshti. Parameshta means great-great-great-grandfather, which is Lord Brahma. So he is the highest, is Lord Brahma in this material world. But the material opulence of Brahma, Parameshtya, who lives in the topmost planet, cannot be compared to the opulence of the Lord in front of them here, right? And that is caused by you because it is an unobstructed spiritual energy of the Lord. Whereas the highest opulence of Parameshtya, Lord Brahma, is only material, right? So therefore it cannot be compared. So they were confused. There was like the first real experience of the spiritual energy of the Lord for them. They were thrilled, they were excited, but at the same time they were enamored. They were completely in awe. They were experiencing ecstatic symptoms, but still confused because that's the first experience of spiritual atmosphere. So, and direct dealing with the Supreme Lord, anyone would be confused. And in a delicate subject matter like this, the confusion is enhanced. So we will stop here. Then tomorrow we will discuss the Kumaras that try to reply to Lord Narayan. And furthermore, Lord will actually. So it's very, very, very beautiful, very cute presentation of Lord Vishnu. And tomorrow we will do the rest of the verses. Hopefully we'll finish. Yeah, we can finish the chapter tomorrow. So please read the next part, Kumara's reply to Lord Narayan, which is 16 to 25. Okay. And then the rest of it, the Lord will reconcile the situation. Right? He comes to reconcile. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, His Grace Advaita Krishna Prabhu, for your time, for your love, compassion. We pray that Guru and Krishna will continue to empower you and bless you with knowledge to guide us. So, dear devotees, on this note, I request everyone to kindly unmute. Let us lively chant Hare Krishna Maha to appreciate our teacher.
Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Achakapataru, Chakli Pasu,
Vaishnavi Namo Namaha.